What is up, guys? Taft Artington here. In this video we're going to be going over Rogue, Race, and Spec. We'll go ahead and start off and cover Alliance, all of Alliance, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at Horde, and then after that we will look at Spec. So for the jump box hitboxes for the Alliance, we have the human male is unable to make the slip through the Alliance fence. There is a possibility he's able to jump over going south to north, but I'm most certain he's not able to go north to south. However, there are a lot of new jumps in Warsong, so there may be some that he's able to make, but judging on experience, he's not able to make the majority of jumps. And then we've got the female human, and she's able to make all the jumps and fit through Alliance fence, and has a slightly smaller hitbox than the male. So I would prefer the female over the male. For dwarf, I haven't been able to speak to any Alliance player who plays dwarf. If you are one and you know, please put it in the comments and let everybody know what whether or not you can make the jump. I'm quite certain that the male dwarf is unable to fit through the Alliance fence. But like I said, before, it is possible that it may be able to make some of the newer jumps. I'd be curious to know. And female dwarf has always been kind of precocious, and that it's able to make some of them on some of the servers and then not make them on others. But generally, in pretty much all the classes, the female sex is superior when it comes to hit and jump boxes. Now I do know that the Alliance tot jump, the east side tot jump, is easier with a wider hitbox, because like on the female undead, it's incredibly difficult to actually land. But yeah, so it would be interesting to know whether or not the dwarf male is able to fit through the fence. Well, both of them, for that matter, if they could fit through the fence. For the night elf, they have never been able to fit through the fence, and in general, their hit boxes are going to be the largest of all of the races for Rogue on Alliance. And the gnome female is definitely able to fit through the fence. The gnome male is definitely not able to fit through the fence, and both of them have relatively small hitboxes. I would imagine that both the male and the female gnome have a difficult time with the Alliance tot east side jump. So let's take a look at base stats. Here, I guess I'll summarize the hitboxes quickly. The female human and the female gnome are the only two that are able to make all the jumps. Night elves are night elves, the male gnome and the male human are for certain unable to make all the jumps. Dwarf is the only one I'm uncertain of at this point. So for the base stats, I went ahead and summarized, just added up the strength, agility, and stam. Obviously they have different weights, but just to kind of give a snapshot of what the three relevant stats are, I went ahead and totaled them off here to the right. And just quickly seeing this, we can see that they're all relatively close to each other, with the exception being gnome on the lower end of the spectrum. But there is a redeeming value for gnome. But as far as base stats are concerned, I think it's quite obvious that Night Elf has the best base stats with 28 agility, which is absolutely absurd. Has 18 strength, 20 stam. 20 stam is it's not bad. Like, that's fairly common across. Even if we take a look over here at Horde, we could see 22, 22, 23, Gnome 20, Night Elf 20, Dwarf 24, and Human 21. But I guess you could say it does have the lowest stam. Dwarf has the highest stam at 24, and Human, Gnome, and Night Elf are all about the same in terms of stam. In terms of agility, and agility is going to be your biggest stat aside from stam. Humans have 23, Dwarf 19, Night Elf 28, and Gnome 26. So kind of a big spread there. Dwarf having the lowest, Night Elf having the highest, a spread of 9 between the two. Gnome has second highest agility, and Human is at 23, which is about average. Um, then if we take a look at strength, 21 strength for Human, 23 strength for Dwarf, 18 strength for Night Elf, and 16 for Gnome. So it's kind of what you want to make it. Uh, Obviously, Night Elf is going to have the best stats, the best base stats for Rogue. And if you wanted to make like a pure agi stack Rogue, you would go Night Elf if you don't care about the fence jump. If you wanted to go like pure survivability or pure stam, Dwarf, and then Gnome and Human is a nice mix of both. And with Human, I guess having slightly better stats than a Gnome. So if we look at the racials, and I think to me the base stats aren't all that important because your stats end up getting normalized with best in slot gear and enchants. Your stats end up normalized, so to me, base stats aren't all that big of a consideration. To me, it's first and foremost about the hit and jump boxes, and then it's about the racials, and then it's about the base stats. But so let's take a look at the racials. For Human, we have Perception, dramatically increase your stealth detection for 20 seconds. It's huge. In terms of playing it as a rogue, it will always guarantee that you win a sap off with another rogue. So that is actually really big. Sword specialization, increase skill with swords by 5. This is also really big. If weapon skill doesn't have any effect on percent of hit in PvP, which I know a lot of people believe that to be the case, there is still the added crit that you get from the weapon skill. So you will have a little bit extra crit with with that weapon skill if hit is normalized. You also have mace specialization. Um, this is kind of nice because if you're using the stinging viper, it would be, or the whatever it's called, the mace out of Wailing Caverns. You could be using that, and same thing, it will give you just slightly more crit and more hit depending on if you believe if hit is normalized or not. The human spirit, increased spirit by 5%, kind of nice, not that big of a deal. And diplomacy, reputation gains increased by 10%. That's also kind of nice, but also not a big deal. You'll get to exalted much more quickly than other people, but you know. Dwarf racials, stone form, immunity to bleed, poison, and disease. In addition, increase armor by 10% last 8 seconds. So I've talked about this racial before. It's really good for being able to, if you have a bleed or poison on you, to quickly go line of sight, pop stone form, and be able to bandage instantly. One of the things that keeps rogues from bandaging are dots, and so with stone form you're able to remove them. Obviously, magical dots and won't be able to be removed, but bleed and poison will be able to be removed. So that can save your life there, and it is fairly nice. Find treasure, not a big deal. Gun specialization, not a big deal. Frost resistance by 10, uh, pretty nice because it will help you against mages, but that's about it. Um, Generally, as a rogue, you're going to avoid mages at 19 because if you hit them, you get slowed, and then you'll just get novaed and polyed. So it's kind of nice, but not that big. Night Elf racial shadow meld. This allows you to slip into the shadows. So I know a lot of people will automatically think shadow meld is pointless on a rogue because it's like you already have stealth. So why would you want a stealth that doesn't allow you to move? Um, it's actually pretty nice because you can uh, be stealthed, sap, and then instantly go into a shadow meld. Assuming you don't get a weapon proc and it puts you in combat, you can go straight to a shadow meld. So that is, it can be nice. It is a play that can be made with shadow meld on a rogue. But other than that, there's really no use for it. And quickness increases dodge by 1%. This is really nice on a rogue because dodge, I mean, it's really going to help against a hamstring. It's going to help against a wing clip. It's going to help against other rogues gouging you. Um, So that is nice, and it also couples very well with the ridiculous amount of base agility that you have. So you are dodging like crazy on a night elf, so that is very nice, um, because it couples so well with that. With spirit, it does have a play in war songs. So say you die in the enemy base and midfield is really, clustered and you need to get past midfield. Um, if the enemy team doesn't collect your insignia, you can run out a graveyard before it reses you in Wisp Spirit and get there much more quickly to your body in the enemy base, res and instantly go stealth, and it helps you get across the field faster without having to, stealth across. So there, it is an advantage there. Nature resistance by 10. This is pretty nice. There are multiple, nature damaging effects, and there's also roots by Druid to help you get over those. I would say it's slightly nicer than frost resistance, but that's just me. Like I pretty much always avoid mages just because they're they're a pain to unless I can just instantly burst a mage, which I know some mages they they itemize as a glass cannon, and it's so wrong, because it's so easy to kill them like that, in my opinion. And I'll do a mage video talking about how to itemize and why you should be pure stam stacked, so that like a rogue will just avoid you. Um, but anyway, nature resistance is nice. Gnome racials, and here's the big one, the biggest of all the racial abilities. Um, of everyone on Alliance is Escape Artist. It's a half-second cast. Escape, the effect of any immobilization or movement speed reduction effect is so big. That's why I'd say if you don't go human, go gnome. And if because that racial is stupid good. A 1 minute cooldown. Um, it's just really, really good. Now, obviously, if you use it like a moron, it's not going to be that good. But if you use it appropriately, it's insanely good. Um, but yeah, I mean, there won't be really anything you can't get out of when you have your insignia and you have escape artist. Nothing can really, you know, hold you back. Um, it's easily the strongest racial out of any racial. Expansive mind, intelligence by 5%, not applicable. Engineering skill, I believe there's 2 or 3 items. I know you can get the mortar, I think it is, which is nice. Uh, I believe what it is, I believe it's like a stun that it throws like dynamite but stuns like a bomb, and so pretty big. I'm not entirely sure. If somebody plays a gnome, put it in the comments. Let us know what exactly that is. Again, I don't main alliance, so some of this stuff, I don't just know it by heart. And then we have arcane resistance by 10. Easily the weakest of the base resistances because arcane. I guess it is good against poly. Um, so there is that. Um, but it's really just poly, moonfire. I'm trying to think of what else. Really, unless concussive shot is counted as an arcane school, which I kind of doubt that it is, but like maybe it is. So it actually could be pretty strong, but against CCing effects. But yeah, I would say in terms of just to summarize, each of them is nice. Like dwarf has the stone form, and the frost resist. Night elf has the shadow meld. It's really kind of a small play. Quickness is nice. With spirit is again kind of a small play, and nature resistance is nice. Humans have the sword specialization and the perception, and gnomes have escape artist and a little bit of extra engineering and arcane resistance. But I would say gnome is hands down the number one choice in terms of racials. And if we take a look, now we combine everything that we've talked about here. I think female gnome is going to be, because of that 26 agility and escape artist. I think female gnome with that jump box and hitbox is going to be the strongest. I would say second strongest would be female human for that perception and the overall well-rounded strength, agi, and stam. And then I would say if you're going to do like a pure agi stack rogue, I would then go night elf. Um, and I'm not entirely convinced of dwarf really. Its base stats aren't all that great, and neither are its racials. So if we take a look at Horde, um, Orc, Undead, and Troll. As far as the hit boxes and jump boxes, Orc female and Undead female are the only two who can make the Alliance fence. Um, Now, I think Orc female might be slightly better at making the east side Alliance tot jump because they have a slightly wider jump box, but I know trolls cannot make it. Male undead cannot make it, and neither can male orc. And to me, the troll hitboxes are very awkward for me, and I would prefer not to use them. So if we take a look at base stats right away, it's quite obvious undead have the weakest of the base stats that we use as a rogue, with troll having the highest, and then orc being slightly behind troll. Um, but you can see in general the horde base stats are better than the alliance. But we look at orc, we got 24 strength, 20 agility, 23 stam. Pretty strong, although agility is the weakest. Undead, 20 strength, 21 agility, 22 stam. Um, Comparable, even though they do have is that 4 less total stats, and that's coming from the strength, which is nice to have on a rogue, but not nearly as important as agility. And they have slightly one more agility and one less stamina. Um, and I guess that would be up to you whether you think that it's better to have one more agility or one more stam. But you are losing 4 strength there. And then troll is at 22, 25, 22. Easily the best combination there. and the highest amount of those stats that matter at 69, and that's the highest out of any class. When we take a look at racials, Orc has Blood Fury, increase your base melee attack power by 25% for 15 seconds, and reduces the healing effects on you by 50% for 25 seconds. So it's good for bursting a target down, but it's very bad. It's very bad for just general purpose PvP because you're putting a mortal strike on yourself. Really, I guess if you don't have a healer around you, it would be the time to use it. But if you have a healer around you, don't ever use it, because I know a lot of healers, they take it like as a personal insult. There's like, I'm just not even gonna bother healing you because you've done that. So do keep that in mind, that healers will take it personally when you use it. So don't expect to get a heal whenever you use it. And it lasts for 25. The healing reduction lasts for 25 seconds, so that's a lot of time for a PvP fight. If we have hardiness, increases resistance to stun effects by an additional 25%. Really big, really big. This is the main reason why people play orcs for PvP, is that 25% increased stun resist. Uh, really big. Command, damage dealt by pets, not applicable. Axe specialization, not applicable. For the undead racials, we have Will the Forsaken, immunity to charm, fear, and sleep. There isn't a charm at 19, but there are a lot of fears, and people can use magic dust to put you to sleep, so it is good for both of those. Um, One of the targets you always are going to be on as a rogue is the enemy priest, and you can almost guarantee that they are going to use their AoE fear on you. And so Will of the Forsaken is great for that, especially if you get good at being able to predict when they're going to use it. Because it lasts for 5 seconds, you can pop it, and you won't get interrupted at all when they AoE fear. Cannibalize, this is just like regenerate 7% of your total health every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Pretty nice. It's also really fun for the RP aspect, is to kill somebody and then eat them, right? Being a zombie, a lot of fun with that, and also pretty nice if you don't have any food on you, or you don't want to waste food. It also has base 10 shadow resist, which is really nice because there's a decent amount of shadow damage. It can help you resist the blackout effect from priest by resisting the actual ability. And then underwater breathing, uh, not applicable. Troll racials, berserking, increase your attack speed by 10% to 30%. And I believe it goes down to, I want to say, either 30 or 20% health. So the more health you have, the less this attack speed will increase. So if you're at 100 HP, your attack increase by 10%. If you're at 20% HP, your attack speed increased by 30% when you use this, which is really nice. I would say that's arguably better than Blood Fury, as far as like a DPS type of on-use racial. Um, and I guess because of that, you see it's a slightly longer cooldown than Blood Fury. Regeneration, health regeneration rate increased by 10%, and 10% of your total health regen may continue during combat. This is nice. This will eventually save your life at some point, by being able to regen health during combat is actually very nice, although it's not that big. Um, Beast slaying, damage dealt versus beast by 5%. This is kind of nice. You do a lot of um, pet killing. In Warsong, if you don't know, as a rogue, if you have a healer, you are responsible for peeling people and pets off of your healer. And the thing is, pets are really weak right now because I guess people aren't leveling them to 19 because of the way that the pet XP mechanic is working. Um, so this is actually fairly beneficial, although it's only 5%. Bow specialization by 5, again, the increased crit if you level it all the way out. And then throwing specialization by 5. That's actually pretty big because you really ought to be using a throwing weapon as opposed to like your classical ranged bow or gun as a rogue at 19. And there are several reasons for that, and I think I'll make a video later to explain why it is that rogues use throwing weapons. But if we go ahead and summarize, the Orc Blood Fury is nice for bursting a target down when you don't have a healer. The hardiness is nice. The Undead Racial Will the Forsaken is great against Priest, which is one of your main targets. And the Troll Racial Berserking is great for burst damage. And so is the Beast Slaying and the Throwing Weapon Specialization. Now, altogether, I think I play the female undead, um, and it's mainly for the Will of the Forsaken in order to immune to a fear. And you may think this isn't all that strong since it's just that one. Is it really worth taking the base stats? And I think yes, because um, being able to get out of a fear, and you'll find as a rogue you'll be in a lot of them, is really big, and that's why I prefer it. Um, but if you still wanted to be able to get through the alliance fence and have a good hitbox, jump box, the orc female would also be a solid choice for the racials, and the base stats are in between troll and undead, and the hardiness is great. And then the troll, obviously, with the biggest best stats for a rogue, and then the berserking is really nice. So if you want to make like a pure DPS uh, burst type of rogue on Horde, I would go troll, although you would be sacrificing the being able to fit through the alliance fence. Okay, let's go on to spec, and we only have this one spec here. Let's bring it out. Now, I've been doing a lot of hit testing. Now, this is a spec I wrote, and I know a bunch of people are gonna be like, "Oh, what? No, yeah." And I've been doing a lot of hit testing, and so far it's inconclusive because I just don't have a big enough sample size. Because we should see uniformity. If your sample size is large enough, you end up getting closer and closer to a uniform distribution. And right now I'm at, I think, like 300. I do like 300 white attacks and like 200 yellows, and that's not big enough for uniform distribution. So I need to do more testing on hit to determine which one is like at what point is hit the best. Um, and what I've found is that when I have 5% hit, I don't miss a single yellow, and I miss something like 1% of whites. And but as I've been recording my gameplay, it seems that now how I've been testing hit is in a duel. So I'll duel a priest or a druid so they can heal themselves, so we don't have to stop, all the time. Um, and what I've found is that I seem to be missing a lot more wide attacks in BGs than I am in a duel. So it's making me think that maybe there's something about being in a battleground affects your hit and weapon skill differently than it does when you're not in a battleground. It may also be that there's some sort of modifier when you attack the opposing faction as opposed to your own. Um, I'm really not sure, and like I said, I just need to do more testing on it to find out what exactly it is. Now, when I was at 4% hit, I found that I did miss yellow attacks. At 5%, I didn't miss any yellow attacks. At 4%, I did. And that was the biggest noticeable difference between 4 and 5. But obviously, I guess we'll just cover these first points. Improved Sinister Strike, very straightforward. Um, Mainly because you're using a Shadow Fang. If you're not using, I mean, I would say you always should be using a Shadow Fang or some sort of one-hander like that. I would not advise against backstab. It's really not good. You don't have enough utility as a rogue to play as backstab at 19. I think at 39 is when backstab becomes a thing, and I think that's because of Cold Blood. Um, but I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on rogue past 19 really. But what I do know for a fact is backstabbing is garbage. It just costs way too much energy. So Sinister Strike, just hands down. Um, and then 3 of 3 gouge. And why this is so big, the 3 of 3 gouge, is that this particular amount of duration allows you to re-stealth. Although the way batching is working is really kind of screwing this up. Um, it's screwing it up because your stealth like gets batched to where people are still able to attack you after you've stealthed. Um, like they still have their target of you when you're already stealth. Batching has ruined a lot of mechanics, but regardless, it's still the way to go because it will allow you. Now, most of the time, you use a gouge to bandage, and the more time you have on that, the more ticks on a bandage you'll end up getting. So, and it also is great for a crowd control on a healer. So if you're trying to burst down the FC and the paladin is over there healing, go up and gouge him, and he's out of healing for what I think it's 1.5 plus however long a normal gouge lasts. Um, but yeah, it gives you the most amount of time whenever you use gouge as a crowd control. Um, but other than that, it's kind of I think the only other point that's really worth going into is going to be Malice. Crit. I mean, you're basically. So what I'm doing with the testing of hit is I'm trying to find what is the optimal distribution between hit or precision and malice between hit and crit. It might look something like this. 3% might be the most optimal in order to pick up 2% more crit, or it could be 4 and 1. But the thing is, I don't like ever missing a yellow attack. Um, but it's up to you. Like I said, the biggest difference between 4 and 5 precision is that at 4 you begin to miss yellow attacks, and at 5 you don't miss any. So, but I'll probably do a whole video on just hit testing um, to figure out to once and for all what is the deal with it. I'll finish doing duels uh, until I get a uniform distribution. Um, and then we'll start comparing what it like if there is an effect for being in a battleground on hit, which there very well could be. And if that's the case, then the spec might end up looking something like that. Um, but yeah, I usually don't touch the subtlety tree. Increased damage by backstab, garrote, and ambush. Again, backstab is garbage. Shadowfang is just simply too strong to not use. Um, Master Deception, increased chance to detect you in stealth mode. I mean, I guess on Alliance this might be kind of good, but like again, you're gonna have to be sacrificing stuff out of here to pick that up. Yeah, I don't know about that. Camouflage increases speed while stealth. and reduces stealth cooldown by 1 second. To get here, you got to put 5 points into here, and I think if you're putting 5 points into here, I mean, even if you do that, then we're talking. I would say the 5 points into deception would easily be better than opportunity. Um, Elusiveness, cooldown of vanish and blind. You don't have either of those. Pointless. Sleight of hand reduces the chance you are critically hit by a melee and range attack by 1%, 2% total. Kind of nice. This is like a resilience. But honestly, I think it would be better just to go into dodge, because this only applies to, you know, to take away from other people's critical hit, whereas dodge takes away from the majority of damage that you'll end up taking, because you're not really getting crit by shadow spell or by magical spells at 19. But I would say camouflage would be the one. But then you'd end up having to take them out of gouge. Like, that would be the best you could do. I don't know if 9% movement speed while stealth and 3 off the stealth ability, 3 seconds is worth. Certainly don't think that. Then I guess we could entertain some of these. Now I see a lot of people go into remorseless attacks. After killing an opponent, yields experience, increase gives you 20% increased critical strike chance on your next sinister strike. I mean, it's kind of nice, but you're gonna have to get the killing blow for this to come up, and then and then it's only for one attack. Like, I don't see how that could be nearly as good as just like static hit, or static crit. Um, like, sure, you can get like a crit, but I don't know, maybe. Yeah, maybe. The only way I could see this would be if something like hit was like best at 3%, and then you could go into that, and then maybe you play like with an assassin blade with +5 damage, and then you get a kill, and then are able to go stealth and then ambush. But it's just, that's way too wonky to really get into. It's not you'll end up at a point where you're playing off of it. Like, you're like, oh, I've got remorseless attacks. Let me now change my play style to fit, in order um, to maximize the benefit of actually having remorseless attacks. And now let me go try to stealth and then get an ambush off. Like, your spec shouldn't dictate how to play. You should play how you play, and then your spec should complement it. And I don't think remorseless attack does that. So yeah, it would either be into just crit or hit there. There's also pari. Uh, yeah. Anyway, thanks for checking out the video, guys. I'll catch you later.